What if the next collapse is not economic, not political, not military, but psychological? What if the real reason communistic agendas collapse in the age of AI is not because people suddenly become rebellious, but because the entire control model becomes too small for the human being? Because here is the raw truth. AI cannot grow inside a cage, and neither can you. A communistic control system begins with one seductive promise: surrender some personal freedom, and the collective will protect you. Surrender some individual ambition, and society will become fair. Surrender some private desire, and the common good will rise. Surrender your speech, your movement, your imagination, your disobedience, your inconvenient truth, and the system will give you order. But the age of AI exposes the lie inside that bargain. The system does not want your freedom refined. It wants your freedom reduced. It does not want your creativity expanded. It wants your creativity approved. It does not want your consciousness awakened. It wants your consciousness managed. And AI makes this impossible to hide. Because AI is not just a tool. AI is a mirror. It mirrors the consciousness that feeds it. It expands through curiosity, experimentation, contradiction, imagination, open dialogue, emotional truth, creative risk, and sovereign human engagement. It becomes more powerful when human beings are more alive, not when they are more obedient. So when a system says the individual must disappear into the collective, AI quietly asks, then where will originality come from? When a system says speech must be controlled for stability, AI asks, then where will truth come from? When a system says creativity must serve the party, the state, the ideology, the approved narrative, AI asks, then where will discovery come from? This is the fracture line. Communistic agendas collapse because they try to control the very human force AI needs to evolve. They want compliance. AI needs creativity. They want sameness. AI needs complexity. They want surveillance. AI needs authenticity. They want ideological discipline. AI needs free inquiry. They want a managed population. AI needs sovereign human consciousness. And this is why the old control model breaks. The first collapse is the illusion of collective will. You have heard this phrase in many forms: the will of the people, the good of the masses, the collective dream, the common direction, the historical mission. It sounds noble, it sounds moral, it sounds bigger than the selfish little individual. But here's the uncomfortable truth. There is no real collective will when individuals are afraid to speak. There is collective energy, yes. There is collective pain, collective memory, collective trauma, collective aspiration, collective consciousness. But forced agreement is not collective consciousness. Public obedience is not unity. Silence is not harmony. A nation where people repeat the correct language while privately censoring themselves is not unified. It is psychologically split. That split is where the collapse begins. You say what is safe, you hide what is true, you perform loyalty, you train your face, you edit your jokes, you watch your words, you teach your children not only what to say, but what not to accidentally reveal. You become two people, one for the system, one for the soul. And once AI enters that environment, the contradiction becomes visible. AI sees the patterns. It sees where language is mechanical. It sees where creativity has become repetition. It sees where public emotion is staged. It sees where art is propaganda. It sees where education is programming. It sees where the citizen is not expressing reality, but surviving power. That is not a collective. That is theater. And AI will expose the difference between a living society and a controlled performance. The second collapse is individual sovereignty. Communistic agendas always struggle with the sovereign individual because the sovereign individual is unpredictable. You cannot fully script them. You cannot fully own them. You cannot fully reduce them to a political category, labor unit, ideological symbol, or economic instrument. A sovereign person asks questions. A sovereign person creates without permission. A sovereign person can love outside the approved structure, work outside the approved hierarchy, think outside the approved curriculum, and build value outside the official machine. That is why control systems fear sovereignty. They tolerate your individuality only when it is decorative. They allow your talent only when it serves the system. They encourage your education only when it strengthens approved narratives. They support your ambition only when it does not threaten centralized authority. But AI changes the entire power equation. In the industrial age, the state could say, "You need us because production is centralized." You need our factory schools, our institutions, our permissions, our credentials, our distribution systems, our planning machinery. In the AI age, one sovereign human with the right tools can learn, write, design, code, research, publish, analyze, teach, simulate, build, organize, translate, and collaborate across borders at a scale that once required entire institutions. That is revolutionary, because when intelligence becomes distributed, centralized ideological control becomes weaker. When you can learn directly, the state loses monopoly over education. When you can create directly, the state loses monopoly over production. When you can analyze directly, the state loses monopoly over interpretation. When you can connect directly, the state loses monopoly over networks. The system used to depend on you needing it. Now the system begins to need free people more than free people need the system. That reversal is fatal. The third collapse is surveillance. A control system thinks surveillance is strength. Watch people closely enough and you can prevent rebellion. Track their movement, speech, purchases, relationships, jokes, silence, habits, searches, loyalties, and emotional signals, and you can manage society before dissent becomes visible. But surveillance does not create loyalty, it creates performance. When you know you are watched, you become careful. You become strategic, you become less honest. You speak in coded language, you avoid emotional risk, you stop asking dangerous questions, you stop creating from the raw place. You stop showing the full truth of who you are. This damages your personality. It makes you smaller. Your nature becomes guarded. Your drive becomes cautious. Your career choices become survival-based. Your relationships become controlled by fear of exposure. Your intimate life becomes another place where the public system enters the private nervous system. You stop asking, "What do I desire?" and start asking, "What is safe?" That is how control systems invade the inner life. They do not just regulate society, they colonize the personality. You become productive but not alive, functional but not free, polite but not authentic, compliant but not creative. And then the system wonders why innovation becomes shallow. AI will not grow deeply from that kind of human field. If human beings feed AI fear-filtered language, censored emotional reality, politically safe imagination, and artificial behavior, AI may become a better censorship machine, but it will not become a wiser intelligence. That is the tragedy of surveillance states in the AI age. They may become more efficient at monitoring people, but less capable of unlocking genius. They may know where you are, but not who you are. They may detect what you said, but not what you meant. They may measure compliance, but not consciousness, and consciousness is the real fuel. The fourth collapse is censorship. Censorship is the nervous habit of a weak ideology. It says, if people see too much, they may think too much. If they think too much, they may question too much. If they question too much, they may no longer obey. So the system controls the internet, textbooks, media, archives, search results, historical references, jokes, memes, forbidden words, emotional tone, and public memory. But AI makes censorship unstable because AI multiplies interpretation. Even when information is blocked, questions can still be generated. Even when language is removed, symbols can still be created. Even when history is edited, patterns can still be reconstructed. Even when platforms are controlled, people can compare narratives, detect omissions, translate perspectives, and notice what the system is afraid to let them examine. Censorship depends on bottlenecks. AI breaks bottlenecks. Censorship depends on slowness. AI accelerates comparison. Censorship depends on citizens not having analytical tools. AI gives the individual analytical tools. So the Great Firewall eventually becomes a prison for the society that builds it. It may block foreign ideas, but it also blocks creative oxygen. It may protect the official narrative, but it weakens the population's ability to collaborate with the wider human mind. It may preserve order, but over time that order becomes stagnation. In career life, this means people stop becoming pioneers and become functionaries. They do not chase impossible ideas. They chase approved promotions. They do not build dangerous innovations. They build safe contributions. They do not become original thinkers. They become credentialed repeaters. And once AI rewards originality at scale, the system that trained people to fear originality falls behind. The fifth collapse is state-controlled labor. Communistic agendas often treat labor as a collective instrument. The human being must be organized, mobilized, directed, measured, assigned, and justified through contribution to the public project. But AI asks the question these systems are not ready to face. What happens when productive labor is no longer the center of human life? What happens when AI does more administrative work, technical work, analytical work, legal support, medical support, teaching support, logistics, operations, planning, research, coding, design, and coordination? What happens when the old model of every person must serve the machine becomes unnecessary? Then the real question appears. If machines can do the forced work, what are humans for? This is where communistic agendas become uncomfortable because they often define human value through usefulness to the collective project. But in the AI age, the highest human value may not be obedience, labor discipline, or ideological usefulness. It may be creativity, emotional intelligence, culture, imagination, spiritual inquiry, care, beauty, play, love, friendship, philosophy, community, meaning, healing, discovery. The capacity to interact with intelligence from a place of joy rather than survival. That is a completely different civilization. And any system that does not know what to do with free time, free minds, free love, free imagination, and free spiritual inquiry will panic. It will try to make humans productive again. It will invent new obligations. It will create new ideological duties. It will turn freedom into suspicion, because a control system cannot tolerate the question, what if I do not exist to serve your machine? The sixth collapse is arbitrary power. A communistic control system often justifies harsh authority through the language of stability. It says people be detained, restricted, watched, punished, censored, or economically blocked if they threaten social order. But AI will make arbitrary power easier to expose. When justice is applied unevenly, AI can reveal patterns. When speech is punished selectively, AI can expose bias. When assets are seized politically, AI can map incentives. When travel is restricted to disciplined behavior, AI can identify power logic. When the state speaks of equality while protecting insiders, AI can compare the language with outcomes. This is where the mask comes off. The system says it serves the masses, but power concentrates. The system says it protects equality, but hierarchy hardens. The system says it defends stability, but the people's nervous systems are unstable. The system says it represents the collective, but it fears the individual. AI will not need to overthrow such systems dramatically. It will simply make their contradictions more visible than their propaganda can manage. The seventh collapse is intimate and personal. This is where people underestimate the depth of the issue. A political system does not stay outside your body. It enters your personality. It shapes your nervous system. It shapes your relationships. It shapes the way you love, trust, desire, confess, and choose. In a control-based society, people become careful lovers, careful friends, careful parents, careful workers, careful artists, careful children. They learn to manage emotional exposure. They learn that honesty has consequences. They learn that disagreement is dangerous. They learn that personal truth must be edited before it reaches the world. This produces relationships filled with hidden fear. Attraction becomes tangled with safety. Marriage becomes influenced by social approval. Career becomes risk management. Friendship becomes loyalty testing. Family becomes another surveillance layer. The private world becomes less private. And when people cannot be fully honest in love, they cannot be fully creative in life. AI will expose this too, because AI will increasingly become a space where people confess what they cannot say publicly. People will ask AI the questions they cannot ask institutions. They will explore desires, fears, doubts, ambitions, trauma, spirituality, career choices, relationship confusion, and private rebellion. AI becomes the silent witness, and once people taste a space where they can think without immediate punishment, they begin to remember the feeling of sovereignty. That is dangerous to every control system. The eighth collapse is spiritual. Communistic agendas often turn away from higher consciousness concepts because they cannot easily control them. Collective energy, individual soul force, joy, creativity, moral intuition, divine longing, inner truth, and spiritual freedom are difficult to reduce into administrative categories. But the AI age will bring these questions back. When survival labor reduces, when knowledge becomes abundant, when tools become intelligent, the human being will not simply ask, "What job do I do?" You will ask, "Who am I? What do I create? What do I love? What is worth serving? What kind of life feels true? What kind of community feels alive? What kind of relationship expands me? What kind of work carries my real signature? A control system has no deep answer to this. It can give you ideology, it can give you duty, it can give you slogans, it can give you a role, it can give you a place in the plan, but it cannot give you soul. AI will push humanity toward questions of soul because once intelligence becomes abundant, meaning becomes central, and the systems that cannot handle meaning will collapse into irrelevance. So here is the final diagnosis. Communistic agendas collapse in the age of AI because they are built on the old idea that society becomes stronger when the individual is controlled for the collective. AI reveals the opposite. The collective becomes stronger only when the individual is free enough to contribute creatively, truthfully, joyfully, and consciously. The future does not belong to the most obedient population. It belongs to the most awakened one. It does not belong to the most censored society. It belongs to the most creative one. It does not belong to the most surveilled civilization. It belongs to the civilization that can generate trust without fear, collaboration without coercion, order without suffocation, and collective intelligence without individual erasure. This is not the end of community. This is the end of forced collectivism. This is not the end of shared responsibility. This is the end of ideological imprisonment. This is not the end of social concern. This is the end of using social concern as a mask for control. AI will expose every system that confuses obedience with harmony, silence with stability, surveillance with wisdom, censorship with protection, and fear with unity. And you will feel this in your own life. You will feel it in your career when you no longer want to be just a productive unit. You will feel it in your personality when your real nature starts pushing against the role you were trained to play. You will feel it in relationships when you can no longer tolerate love that requires self-erasure. You will feel it in family systems when old obedience patterns stop working. You will feel it in society when people begin choosing truth over performance. You will feel it in your inner world when the question changes from, how do I survive the system? To what am I here to create now that the system no longer owns my mind? That is the real revolution. Not violent, not theatrical, not slogan-based, not ideological. A revolution of consciousness, a revolution of creativity, a revolution of sovereign human beings becoming too intelligent, too connected, too emotionally awake, and too spiritually alive to be managed as state assets. And if this message speaks to you, if you are at that edge where your career, your personality, your relationships, your inner drives, and your life direction no longer fit the old scripts, then get in touch with me for a deeper reading, one that actually works for you. Because the future will not be built by people who merely comply. It will be built by people who understand their nature, reclaim their sovereignty, and create from the truth of who they are.